Hi guys, it's Rob from Royal Balls. I've been working on this video for quite some time. It is an update on the terrarium, so probably not everybody's cup of tea. And what I'm going to talk about today is another one of those behavioural things. This female in the terrarium has taught me even more about the differences between males and females, and I'm going to talk about some of my observations, and unfortunately it's going to go against many common beliefs. First of all, I'm going to talk about socialization, because the terrarium snakes are not socialized at all. Snakes are not social animals. Social behaviour is not in their repertoire. That does not prevent a snake from being successfully handled. They do not need to be repetitively handled in order to tame them down and make them handleable. That is a myth, and I'm going to demonstrate that today. I'm also going to show you some more behaviour that I've noticed in my free roaming, and the differences between males and females are becoming much more apparent as I've gone through this terrarium experiment with this female here. I'm actually going to show you some territorial behaviour and snake combat in males, and it's very subtle. I've shown it before when I've put the camera, the spy cam, into the tubs of various snakes. The females don't respond aggressively at all. The males, however, are a very different animal, and they do respond aggressively to any intrusion into the tub, and they push and shove it around. So I've got some video clips on that whilst the snakes are free roaming. I'll also show you that amazing clip of a free roaming snake going back into its tub all by itself, and that's worth watching all by itself. Alright, it's time to clean out the terrarium, and you guys have seen the drill before, but this is an opportunity to have a look at this girl since she went in the terrarium. This is the first time I've actually seen the whole snake since she went in there. Looks like she's going into a little bit of shed. She's a little bit dull, but let's get a look. And notice this snake has not been handled at all since she went into the terrarium. So we like to talk about socializing snakes, and I'm going to say that that's a misnomer or a myth. Snakes are not social animals, and it is impossible to socialize them. What you are doing is habituating them to being handled, and it desensitizes them, but provided that you do not handle your snake harshly or make it a negative experience, you can see that even a snake that has not been handled doesn't seem to mind a great deal. She's already sticking her head out and exploring, and as long as I'm gentle and don't make any sudden moves, she will respond to that and is perfectly manageable and handleable. The thing to watch out for is when she starts getting tired of that. It's not natural for snakes to be handled. Normally in the wild, any snake that is being touched is being predated upon, and they respond in that manner. They will be fearful, they will be shy, and they will try to run away. So observe your snake, make sure that it isn't overstressed, and you can handle them perfectly well, even though they are not, in inverted commas, socialized. Okay, so she's perfectly handleable. She's not responding aggressively. She's not being overly shy, although I can tell that she is a little bit nervous. That's understandable, and that is completely normal, and as long as I don't stress her out, she's fine. You can see that she's very healthy. She's packed on a ton of weight since she went into the terrarium. What we can do here is to compare her with the guy that just came out, because I have observed that she's not using the underground system, and I was a little concerned that perhaps she's getting a little bit big and couldn't use the tunnels, but the male that was in there before her was using the tunnels without any problem at all, and I don't actually see that she's any bigger than he is. So let's just zoom out a little bit, and I'll bring the old male out so that we can compare. And notice that as soon as I put her down, she relaxes a little bit more. She is in a tub. Her natural response is to try to run away, but she's in a tub, so she can't. But she's not stressing out. I'm not concerned that this is overly stressful. You can see that she is actually huffing. That's a sure sign that she's not exactly comfortable. I've pulled her out of the terrarium in the middle of the morning when she was fast asleep, opened the hide and pulled her out, so not surprisingly she's a little bit grumpy about that. I think I would be too. Okay, so just for comparison purposes, here is the male that was in that terrarium previous to her, and he was managing to use the underground system without any problem at all. And so you can see that he is actually still a little bit larger than her. So it isn't that the tunnels are too small that she isn't using them. We're seeing a difference here in the sexes and how they utilise the space within the terrarium that's available to them. This is a male, this is a female, and the female is behaving very differently inside the terrarium. So there we go, that's the comparison. Here's the male that was in there previously, so you can get a good look at him. He is now living quite happily in a tub, hasn't missed a beat, and is continuing to feed. This girl is also feeding extremely well in the terrarium. You'll remember that this girl is actually a little bit older than he is, but she started off very badly and needed to be assist fed, but you can see that she's none the worse for that and is rapidly catching up. She's eating all by herself very aggressively now and is growing very fast. So they do catch up even if they get off to a bad start. So again guys, socialization of snakes is a myth. This snake has not been handled at all, but I'm going to show you that she is perfectly handleable. What I need to avoid is approaching from above. You can see when I put my hand above how she flinches and she's a little bit fearful, but if I don't hesitate, I just come in, pick her up, and I'm going to put her on the flat of my hand here so I'm not constraining her. And you can see that she's not panicking, she's not freaking out. She is actually trying to go somewhere else, but by being gentle, this snake is not reacting badly to being handled. This is perfectly normal, and just come from underneath, be gentle, and you would not know that this snake has not been handled in months. Let me just zoom out a little bit so that you can see what she's actually up to here. You can see she's moving quite naturally in my hands. She's going back into the tub now. This is quite natural, unstressed behaviour. No issues at all with handling this snake. And this is a non-socialised snake. As I said, socialisation of snakes is a myth. It's the way we handle them that the snake responds to. And actually, socialisation of the snakes is not socialisation of the snakes, it's socialisation of the keeper and training them to work with the snake in a manner that does not stress out the snake. It's as much about you as it is about the snake. So just remember that the snake is always responding to the way you handle them. A snake is always a snake, and you're not going to socialise it, but you can handle them. Not a problem. Ball pythons are not in any way aggressive. They are more shy and defensive, and in the case of a snake that doesn't like what's happening to it, their natural reaction is to try to escape and go somewhere else. If that happens during your handling session, cut the handling session short, put them back in their enclosures and try again a different time. I'm not telling you not to handle your snake, although I will say that breeding snakes is very different to owning a snake as a pet, and you have different objectives. There is nothing wrong with handling your snake, but you may have to make some compromises on that if you are attempting to breed them. If your snake refuses to eat or acts stressfully in its enclosure, that's something that you are doing to it to make it nervous, and you probably need to fix that. And one of the things that you can do is to minimize handling of the snake. If your snake is not eating, the first thing I would advise you to do is to cut down completely on the handling. Let it be, let it start eating again, and then start working with the snake again. So here we are, a non-socialized snake which is actually responding extremely well and being very tolerant to being handled. Okay guys, so that's the terrarium snake, that's the female. We've had a good look at her. Let me just give you a weight on this girl. We'll see what she weighs, just out of curiosity. So let me put the scales here. I will gently pick her up, and I don't think I'm going to need to put her in a tub. I'll just put her on the scales and get her bunched up here on the scales. And she is weighing about 480 grams. Nice, just short of 500 grams. So back in the tub, you can see that she immediately settles down again when she's in the tub. I'll put a lid on and I'll get cracking on cleaning out her enclosure. Just while we're watching this clip of me cleaning out the enclosure here, she has settled very nicely. She's assumed a diurnal routine where she sets up an ambush position, but as with the other snakes, she's used very little of the terrarium, and no restless behaviour, no trying to escape, no wandering, very settled. She's adopted the surface hide rather than the underground tunnel system, and she's very sensitive to movement. She sticks her head out immediately I come in the room. Okay guys, so I'm just checking the underground system, and here's the underground tub. She hasn't actually been in this at all. And I'm just checking the underground pipe work here to make sure there's no poo in the pipes, and there isn't. They're absolutely clean. So I'm actually just going to put this back exactly as it was. The female is not too large to actually utilise these tunnels if she wanted to, so I don't need to make any changes just yet. So we put this back and give her the opportunity to use the underground system, but as I said, she hasn't been doing so. She moves around very little, and most of her focus seems to be food oriented. Whenever there's the scent of rats in the room, she's immediately aware of that and sets up an ambush position, whatever time of day or night it is. She sleeps all day in the surface hide, but for a couple of hours each evening she does set up that ambush position, even on non-feeding days. Even if she's been fed the previous day, she'll be right back in the ambush position every night for just a couple of hours, and then she goes back to sleep again. I've had the spy cam on at night, and she is not active at night. Now I'm going to put the hide in, again facing this way, and typically when she sets up an ambush she's facing the front of the terrarium here, and she did actually rotate the hide around so that it faced forward, so she could see when I came in the room, and she'd instantly poke her head out expecting to be fed. So I'm going to put it back just slightly sideways so that she has to move it again, and we'll see whether that's a repeatable behaviour. And we'll take this perfectly handleable girl and put her back in the terrarium. Now she hasn't gone straight back into her hide, she's gone back into the terrarium without any problem at all, but I can see she's moving around in here, and typically after cleaning it takes an hour or two for them to settle back down, get their bearings and go back into the hide. So let's just make sure in a couple of hours time that that's what she's done. So there we go, that's the full clean out done. Okay, I'm going to insert some more clips on free roaming here, and it's the male snakes that participate primarily in this, and it may not seem to be related at first glance to the terrarium, but actually it is, because the terrarium girl here behaves very differently to the males, and in fact how she behaves in the terrarium has highlighted the differences for me between males and females. So let's have a look at some free roaming video, and I'll make some more observations on what the snakes are actually doing while they participate in this activity. And now I'm going to share with you some more free roaming. These are male snakes on the famous IKEA paper roll. You've seen this behaviour before. The snakes are fascinated by the scent, and they spend hours sniffing every nook and cranny. The important thing to note here is that you get to enjoy your snakes, you get to see their natural behavior without touching them. It's really important to allow your snakes to express themselves without you touching them. Even Lori Torini, the famous snake trainer, has acknowledged after a year of working with ball pythons that they are particularly sensitive to being touched. And if you overhandle your snakes, they do not behave in a natural manner. They respond far better and act much more naturally if you minimize handling. So here is a way that you can enjoy your snakes without touching them. So this restless male pacing his tub, as soon as I put him out onto the table and give him the scent post to smell, we'll sit here for hours calmly examining every nook and cranny on the IKEA paper rack. His behaviour is transformed immediately. He is let out of the tub and given the opportunity to have a sniff around the neighbourhood. This is now a regular part of my routine when cleaning snakes. I just continue to clean around them, and when he's done he will probably go back into his own tub all by himself. This is not about exercise, this is about sensory stimulation, and it's the males that primarily engage in this. I have noticed when they're restless, if I let them out of their tubs to have a good sniff around, that seems to satisfy what it is that they're searching for, and they go back into their tubs and settle back down again. Now that shoving behaviour was probably a little bit subtle for many of you, and you're bound to be sceptical. Take a look at this male here. This is a 20-year-old male kept on a porch outdoors in Malaysia, nowhere near any other females, and each year at this time of year in the wet season this guy starts doing this shoving. This is akin to a male chimpanzee throwing stuff around to assert his dominance. This male is shoving things around to assert his dominance. This is breeding behavior. He treats any object in his space the same way, including other males. I don't think we could get a much clearer example of this. This is actually snake combat. So this is now a regular part of the routine when I'm cleaning, especially in the breeding season, is just to let my males have a little bit of a free roam. The females don't seem to be interested. And here you go guys, unbelievably, and I've shown this before, when this guy is ready to go back to his tub, he goes back to his tub all by himself. How amazing is that? Unbelievable. There he goes, back into his own tub, having had a sniff around. He's going home. And yet another clip of another male at the sniffing post. The focus on this guy is incredible as he tries to sniff out what's going on in the rest of the snake room. He's smelling the calling cards of other male snakes.
Now, I will stress that it's the males that indulge in this, and the reason that I'm showing this clip, it's a little repetitive, but it just goes to show that it isn't just one male that does this. They all do it, and it's the males. The females, as we've seen from the terrarium girl, behave quite differently to the males. They do not indulge in this wandering behaviour. They're much more sedentary, much less active than the males, and they don't seem to be particularly bothered by what's going on around them in the snake room, whereas the males are acutely aware of what's going on around them. And scent for these guys is absolutely essential in the mating process. Once a female is located, their sense of touch takes over. It's a very tactile experience. The mating game is all about touch. This is why I'm suggesting that a male that has been desensitized by overhandling is going to be handicapped during the breeding process. They actually need that sensitivity, that delicate sense of touch, in order to be successful in finding and breeding with any females in the neighborhood.
Okay guys, the live stream that I promised, I'm still working on technical issues. I can live stream from my hand phone, but the orientation of the screen is not correct. I could not connect my camera to my computer and get them to talk to each other without some special cables, and I'm still struggling with audio. I don't actually have a laptop with a webcam that I can sit on the desk here, so let me sort it out. It's not insurmountable, it's just me being a klutz. So I will get round to doing a live stream and giving you guys some opportunities to ask questions and interact in real time. I am actually looking forward to that, but it is not a trivial exercise. Plug and play has turned out to be more plug and pray, and in most cases every time I plug something in it hasn't worked as expected, so go figure. We'll get it sorted and I'll get back to you with a live as soon as I've got a reliable way to do it. Okay guys, so there we go. A lot of probably controversial viewpoints that I've put across there. What amazes me is that we see on many ball python channels videos about socializing your snake, the importance of handling your snake. And the very next video that goes up is how to get your snake back eating again when it stops eating, or how to get a reluctant male to lock with females. And we never seem to make that association between the handling and how it affects the behaviour of our snakes, and I hope I've been able to show you that today. I'm not saying do not handle your snakes, far from it, and if you have a pet snake there is no harm in desensitizing your snake as long as it continues to eat. That's not the issue. When your snake starts to show unusual behaviour, and we've seen this wandering behaviour and attempts to escape in the terrarium from the males when they become unsettled by the presence of other nearby males, if your snake stops eating, then that's an indication that perhaps you're overdoing it a little with the handling. I have found in almost all of these cases that leaving your snake alone, not touching it, not bothering it, cures most of the problems that are commonly encountered in Facebook groups. Again, I'm not criticising, I'm not saying do not handle your snake, I'm just saying be aware. Learn to read your snakes and they will tell you what they do and don't like. Handling is one of the things that snakes do not like. Handling is for us, it's not for them. They gain no benefit whatsoever from being handled by us. They much prefer to be left alone, and I've also demonstrated how free roaming allows you to enjoy your snakes, and actually you can get to observe some of their behaviours that you wouldn't normally see if you were handling them, because if you handle them they don't do it. So there are still ways that you can enjoy your snakes without stressing them out and without touching them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.